What if you could hear every lie before it was spoken? Every betrayal before it happened? Every secret desire hidden behind a smile? Princess Visha gained this impossible power on the worst day of her life. The day she discovered that everyone she loved someone else. But in a world of beautiful lies, she found one brutal truth. The crippled general everyone pitied was the only man who truly wanted her. This is the story of the mind-reading princess. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments which country you're watching from. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe. Enjoy listening. The silk curtains billowed as I entered, and there they stood, the three men Father Emperor had selected. My childhood companion Lord Marcus, my beloved tutor Master Aldrich, and limping in the corner, barely acknowledged General Thorne, the war hero with shattered legs whom I'd spent years antagonizing out of petty jealousy. I was prepared to smile, to choose with grace, to fulfill my duty as any princess should. But then as my gaze swept across Lord Marcus's earnest face, I heard something that froze my blood. "Please don't choose me," his inner voice screamed, though his lips curved into a welcoming smile. "I've already pledged my heart to Tanya. If Princess Visha calls my name, I'll claim my father just died. I'll do anything to avoid this. Tanya, my half-sister, the gentle, delicate princess that Mother Empress adored more than her own flesh and blood." My breath caught. This couldn't be real. I must have imagined it. But then Master Aldrich's thoughts drifted toward me, clear as temple bells. Being kind to Princess Visha is purely strategic, to keep her from opposing Tanya's interests. If she insists on choosing me, I'll drink the chastity poison and preserve myself for Tanya alone. My body may belong to the princess, but my heart will always be Tanya's. Horror and humiliation washed over me in equal measure. The two men I trusted most in this world, and neither wanted me. Both loved my sister, the same sister Mother Empress had raised while casting me aside to the wet nurses, the same sister whose gentle tears earned more sympathy than my achievements ever could. I stood frozen, my mind reeling, when a voice, raw with grief and desperate hope, cut through my shock. "Why won't she look at me? Is it only because my legs are broken? Neither Lord Marcus nor Master Aldrich truly wants her, but I do. I would give anything to be worthy of her." I turned sharply toward the corner. General Thorne sat in his wheeled chair, his face carved from stone, expression carefully neutral. But in his mind, 10,000 horses galloped with longing and self-loathing. If only the celestial sage's remedy works, if I can find the 5-colored racer mushroom, I could heal my legs. I could lead armies again. I could make Princess Visha proud instead of being dead weight. I could stop these cursed political marriages from sacrificing our princesses like pawns. 5-colored racer mushroom. My heart lurched. Just 2 days ago, my border lieutenant had sent an urgent dispatch. We'd intercepted smuggled treasures from the northern tribes. Among them was an extremely rare 5-colored racer mushroom. I stared at General Thorne, this man I'd resented for years simply because Father Emperor praised him more than me. This proud warrior who'd lost both parents to war, who'd commanded armies at age 9, who'd conquered 3 enemy strongholds before a brutal ambush shattered both his legs at 15. And in this moment, hearing his silent anguish, I finally understood. He hadn't been my enemy. I'd made him one out of childish jealousy. Father Emperor's voice boomed across the hall, startling me from my revelation. "Visha, my daughter, what are you hesitating for? These fine men await your favor. Choose and let us celebrate." He had no idea. Father Emperor, in his love for me, remained blind to the truth. Not one of these men had their eyes on me. Every single gaze in this room was fixed on Tanya, who stood demurely behind me, the perfect picture of worried sisterly devotion. Before I could speak, Father Emperor, interpreting my silence as indecision, gestured grandly toward Lord Marcus. "The Marquis' son is your cousin Visha. You two grew up together. I trust him completely. What better match?" Lord Marcus immediately dropped to his knees, head bowed. "Your Majesty, forgive me, but my father passed away only 3 months ago. The mourning period isn't complete. I cannot, in good conscience, discuss marriage at this time." Father Emperor waved dismissively. "We can arrange the betrothal now. Visha isn't old yet. She can wait for your mourning to end." Lord Marcus's body went rigid. I heard his panicked thoughts. The princess is giving His Majesty looks, manipulating him. I know she's desired me for years, but she can't just use the emperor's favor to force this. Can she? I nearly laughed at the absurdity. Desired him? Me? Seeing Father Emperor's growing displeasure at Marcus's reluctance, I quickly intervened. Imperial Father, Lord Marcus and I share maternal ancestry. We're children of sisters. To avoid accusations of impropriety from the court, perhaps a marriage between cousins isn't wise. Relief flooded Marcus's face as he shot me a grateful look. My heart twisted with 1,000 complicated emotions. Father Emperor nodded thoughtfully. Visha speaks wisely. Very well. His gaze shifted to Master Aldrich. What about the Grand Tutor? He's somewhat older, yes, but I've seen how well he treats you. He has no recently deceased family members. You could marry soon. Master Aldrich's lips pressed into a thin line. His eyes found Tanya, and I heard his tortured thoughts. Tanya, forgive me. I can't wait for you any longer. Even if I marry Princess Visha, I'll keep myself pure for you. My body may belong to her, but my heart, my soul, those are eternally yours. Disgust rippled through me. I shook my head vehemently. No, absolutely not. He's far too old. Master Aldrich looked up at me, genuine shock in his eyes, as if he couldn't believe the mischievous princess who'd always followed him around asking endless questions would now publicly reject him for his age. Lord Marcus was laughing internally, though his face remained solemn. He even had the audacity to lecture me. Princess Visha, the Grand Tutor has always been so kind to you. How can you hurt his feelings this way? I turned on him with a cold smile. And you, dear cousin? We grew up together with such deep feelings. Yet when I face being shipped off to a political marriage, you refuse to be my consort. Isn't that hurting my feelings as well? Marcus's face flushed red, then pale. He had no response. Father Emperor's inner voice reached me then, heavy with sorrow. Visha has my temperament, proud and stubborn. If she's sent to the warlord Khan, she'll suffer terribly. But these ungrateful men can't recognize a pearl when they see one. They've made my daughter sad. My eyes stung. Since childhood, Father Emperor had doted on me. Even when the northern warlord Khan specifically demanded a legitimate princess for this political marriage, Father Emperor mediated, delayed, gave me this choice. As first princess, I'd enjoyed the dynasty's wealth and honor from birth. Perhaps it was time I made a sacrifice. What if I simply go to the political marriage? I said quietly. The hall erupted. Master Aldrich was the first to object, stepping forward urgently. Princess Visha, do you understand what you're saying? The warlord Khan is nearly 60 years old. When he dies, their customs will force you to remarry his son, possibly multiple sons. They call it a political marriage, but it's humiliation. You cannot go. Lord Marcus added, Cousin, if you simply don't like me or the Grand Tutor, fine, choose another man as your consort. Why say such spiteful things? I laughed bitterly. If I don't go, the only alternative is Tanya. Silence fell like an executioner's blade. The only sound was my half-sister's delicate sobbing. Finally, Master Aldrich gritted his teeth and said with forced righteousness, If Princess Visha truly wishes it, then Aldrich is willing to marry. A sharp tapping sound shattered the tension. Every head turned toward the corner, where General Thorne sat in his wheeled chair, watching us with dark, glittering eyes. Have you all forgotten, he said slowly, his voice like distant thunder, that there's still one more person here? Before I could respond, Lord Marcus burst out laughing. Young General Thorne, you're overthinking. Princess Visha's standards are sky-high. She'd never choose a cripple for a husband. And besides, you two are like oil and water. You'd better not add fuel to this fire. Master Aldrich wasn't as openly rude, but I heard his pitying thoughts. Poor General Thorne and his broken legs. If he could take the battlefield again, why would Great Liang need to trade a princess for peace? I stared at Thorne, desperate to hear his inner voice again. His expression remained sour, cold as a stone in a frozen river, but suddenly I heard an anguished roar. Damn it all! Why won't she choose me? Is it truly just because my legs are broken? I'd give anything to be whole for her. I looked around, confirming it was indeed Thorne's thoughts I was hearing. My heart ached unexpectedly. The only reason we'd been enemies was my jealousy over Father Emperor's affection for him. But I'd never not once made an issue of his legs. Both his parents had died for the country. He'd gone to battle at 9 years old, conquered 3 cities by 15, and lost both legs in an ambush. How could I mock such sacrifice? As my gaze settled on him, Thorn lowered his head and spoke quietly. The wandering sage who returned 2 days ago said if I could obtain the 5-colored rasher mushroom, he could attempt to heal me. If my legs recovered, I could lead troops immediately. No more princesses would need to suffer political marriages. 5-colored rasher mushroom. Yes, among the smuggled goods my border lieutenant intercepted, there had been one. My heart raced. Just as I was about to speak, hurried footsteps echoed through the hall. Mother Empress burst through the main doors, her face contorted with rage. She didn't even glance at me, walking straight past to gather Tanya into her arms, comforting her tears. Father Emperor tried to smooth things over with a smile. Your timing is perfect. Come help us choose a consort for Visha. Mother Empress glared at me with ice-cold eyes. She knew perfectly well that Tanya is close to Lord Marcus and Master Aldrich. Yet she listed them as potential consorts anyway. I know exactly what she's doing. Forcing Tanya into the political marriage. She paused, her voice rising. I know everything. Both Father Emperor and I stood frozen in shock. Father Emperor had personally selected those 2 candidates with Visha's happiness in mind. Mother Empress grew more agitated, stroking Tanya's tear-stained face while her gaze cut into me like knives. Since you were small, you've competed with Tanya over everything, relying on your father's favoritism to be arrogant and willful. I've tolerated it for years, but now you're toying with your sister's lifelong happiness. As her mother, how can I tolerate this any longer? The accusations poured out. I couldn't defend myself. My heart grew heavier with each word. The truth was simple. Father Emperor doted on me because Mother Empress only loved the gentle, obedient Tanya. Though Tanya wasn't Mother Empress's biological daughter, she'd always treated her as her own, while I, her actual blood, was cast aside. In Mother Empress's heart, I was the outsider. Bitterness filled my chest. I forced my eyes wide, refusing to let tears of hurt fall. Though Lord Marcus and Master Aldrich seemed to pity me slightly, neither spoke in my defense. Why was I never enough for them? When we were children, they treasured me, never willing to let me suffer the slightest grievance. The memory surfaced unbidden. Before Mother Empress gave birth to me, a palace servant pushed her, causing premature labor. I was born so weak my cries were softer than a kitten's mewling. Back then, Mother Empress had doted on me, holding me day and night, singing soft lullabies while I wailed. But then her dearest friend in the palace, noble consort Shu, died suddenly, leaving behind an infant daughter. That was Tanya. Out of love for her deceased friend, Mother Empress doted increasingly on Tanya, handing me over to wet nurses to raise. The wet nurse had a cheerful, boisterous personality and raised me to be a tomboy. I learned to coax Father Emperor into playing with me, and over time, I became what Mother Empress called a little wild thing. Meanwhile, Mother Empress was dignified and rule-abiding, raising Tanya to be gentle and refined, every movement possessing perfect princess grace. To compete for Mother Empress's affection, I'd secretly competed with Tanya, making her cry in frustration every time. But all I earned was Mother Empress's growing disgust. Later, as I matured, I tried to tone down my personality. I learned to act the way Mother Empress preferred, paid my respects dutifully. But she never even looked at me, instead catching the giggling Tanya who ran into her arms, tapping her nose affectionately. Don't run so fast, darling. What if you fall? That's when I finally understood. Mother Empress disliked me as a person. No matter how I changed, I could never earn even a fraction of her patience. Yet now, as she ruthlessly berated me before the entire court, my heart still ached. A deep voice suddenly sounded from behind me, solid as bedrock. Your Majesty the Empress, you are mistaken. General Thorn maneuvered his wheeled chair in front of me, blocking Mother Empress's cutting gaze. His eyes were completely clear and steady. Princess Visha did not choose either Lord Marcus or Master Aldrich as her consort. Instead, for Great Liang's sake, she proactively offered to accept the political marriage. In my view, the princess is not as Her Majesty claims. On the contrary, she is the most decisive and resilient woman in this realm. Everyone stood stunned. These words, coming from Thorn, my supposed sworn enemy, were the last thing anyone expected. Mother Empress recovered first, retorting stubbornly, "A political marriage is her duty as first princess. If she truly intended it, why this consort selection at all?" She looked at Thorn with mocking disdain. "Besides, that warlord Khan may be older, but older men know how to cherish their wives. Visha wouldn't be losing out." She turned her contemptuous gaze fully on Thorn. "Both consort candidates were my selections for Tanya. If Visha truly refuses the political marriage, perhaps she should marry a cripple like you instead." The insult hung in the air, vicious and deliberate. Even Father Emperor's usual smile vanished, and he stared coldly at Mother Empress. "General Thorn's legs were broken in glorious battle," Father Emperor said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Without him fighting on the front lines at such a young age, how would we able-bodied people be nestled in the imperial palace, enjoying wealth and honor?" I was about to rush forward indignantly when I heard Thorn's inner voice. "Forget it. Her Majesty is right. A worthless cripple like me would only drag Princess Visha down for her entire life." I turned to look at him, my heart twisting painfully. His head was bowed deep, shadowing his face. Since childhood, Thorn had excelled at everything. I remembered him returning to the capital in triumph on a magnificent warhorse, flowers raining down from the streets. But the more proud and accomplished a person is, the harder they fall when flawed. He didn't show it outwardly, but inside, he'd begun to despise himself. Mother Empress, thinking she'd made her point, was still looking smug when I smiled and said clearly, "Very well then." I knelt before Father Emperor and bowed deeply. "Your daughter wishes to be eternally united with General Thorn, to never abandon, never part." The hall erupted in chaos. Father Emperor stared at me, surprised and worried. "Are you certain?" His inner voice added. "I trust young Thorn completely, but those broken legs." I nodded firmly. "I am certain." Lord Marcus blurted out, "Impossible." He rushed before me, speaking earnestly. "Cousin, stop this tantrum. Her Majesty is right. With a cripple like him, you won't enjoy marital bliss, and you'll endure a lifetime of gossip and ridicule. If you truly care for me that much, he gritted his teeth, "I'll marry you." Master Aldrich was staring at me with calm, steady eyes. His thoughts drifted to me. "If Princess Visha begs me one more time, I'm also willing to marry her." These two men were truly laughable. Just moments ago they loved Tanya to death, willing to stay chaste for her, willing to defy imperial decree for her. Now they were the ones getting anxious. I impatiently pushed Lord Marcus aside and walked directly toward my future husband. Only then did I notice Thorn's face had turned completely red. He was so stunned he didn't even react until I stood right before him. I leaned down and asked quietly, "What about you? Are you willing to marry me?" His hands were pinching the armrests of his chair so hard his knuckles turned white, but the look in his eyes as he gazed up at me was full of desperate longing. "I am willing." His voice trembled. I have admired Princess Visha for a long time. To be your consort would be the greatest honor of my life." His gaze was so intense, like a starving wolf finally seeing food, that I fled in embarrassment. Father Emperor, thoroughly pleased, issued a decree for Thorn and me to select an auspicious day for marriage. Mother Empress watched everything in stunned silence. Then, as if suddenly remembering, she knelt beside me. "Visha has chosen a consort," she said, her voice breaking. "So the political marriage, doesn't that mean my Tanya must be sent?" She turned to Father Emperor, eyes wide with fury. "Tanya was pampered since infancy. She can't endure hardship. That warlord Khan has already beaten 2 wives to death. You cannot send my Tanya to her death." So she'd known all along. Mother Empress had known how few women sent to political marriages actually lived happy, complete lives. She just didn't love me, and wanted to push me out to take the blade for her darling. That was all. Father Emperor's anger finally surfaced. With a sharp gesture, he said resolutely, "A princess is not a pawn, and Great Liang is not a weak, isolated nation. Even if the world falls into turmoil, I will not allow my daughters' entire lives to be bargaining chips for political marriages." The declaration hung in the air, magnificent and absolute. But then Master Aldrich frowned. Your Majesty, General Thorn's parents, who best understood the warlord Khan's troop deployments and strategies, have already passed away. If we attempt a military expedition... No one spoke. The great hall felt cold as an ice cellar. Thorn sat quietly to the side, his palms trembling slightly. That great war 10 years ago hadn't just taken the Thorn family, it had claimed the Aldrich family, the Sterling family, the Dunbar family. Their descendants hadn't yet matured, and the warlord Khan was growing restless again. Seeing Father Emperor's back bend further under invisible weight, I couldn't help feeling distressed. Thorn and I left the palace gates together. I still harbored some girlish hopes, but facing national affairs, personal feelings seemed insignificant as drops in an ocean. The 5-colored racer mushroom was already being transported by express horses. My deputy general would arrive with it in a few days. I would definitely witness its healing power. Thorn had never been one to offer comfort, but as my future husband, his voice softened unusually. Your Highness need not worry. Though the 2 young generals, Duncan and Sterling, are still young, their strength of character equals mine at their age. I was amused but knew he was right. Back then, by his own strength, he'd made the warlord Khan retreat 10 leagues, never daring to underestimate Great Liang again. I asked him directly, "If your legs heal, are you confident you can win this battle?" His eyes sparkled like stars. "Of course. That's enough," I said quietly. "When your legs heal, I'm going to the battlefield with you." He didn't hear clearly because Lord Marcus and Master Aldrich had followed us out like persistent ghosts. Both wore expressions of regret, staring at me for a long moment, neither daring to speak. But in their hearts they were still secretly competing. Marcus thought. If Tanya hadn't saved me from embarrassment at the Spring Pavilion banquet, I'd probably still be closer to Visha. Aldrich thought. Tanya's skills in music, etiquette, poetry, and discourse are world-renowned. Only such a woman is worthy of being matriarch of the Aldrich family. Visha is too free-spirited. I can't bear to see her suffer domesticity. Saving Marcus from embarrassment, I did that. The renowned poetry, I wrote that. But somehow, inexplicably, all these accomplishments had been attributed to Tanya. Those who truly knew me would never abandon me over such things. Just as I had someone secretly deliver the 5-colored racer mushroom into Thorn's hands, disguised as a gift from Tanya, he didn't consume it immediately. Instead, he turned back to find me. His inner voice reached me. This must actually be from Visha. I walked out from behind the screen, looking at him with a smile. Are you that certain your sworn enemy would be so kind to you? He didn't argue. Instead, he nodded seriously. I was at a loss for words again. The wandering sage was an old friend of General Thorn's late father. Upon seeing we'd obtained the 5-colored racer mushroom, he immediately and cheerfully began treatment. After 2 weeks, Thorn could stand steadily and walk short distances while leaning on me for support. Another 2 weeks later, he could move freely and was eager to try the sabers mounted on the wall, but I yelled him back each time. When he could truly grip a blade again, the first thing he did was run through his old combat forms. I watched with relief. That dashing young general had finally returned. I took him to see Father Emperor. Father Emperor was so shocked he nearly collapsed, tears streaming down his face as he embraced Thorn, murmuring for a long time. General Thorn Sr. had grown up alongside Father Emperor, supported his ascension to the throne, then died gloriously for the country. Now seeing young Thorn standing whole and healthy, Father Emperor could finally face his old friend in the afterlife. I asked Father Emperor to let me accompany Thorn to the battlefield. Imperial Father was furious, arguing that the warlord Khan had originally wanted me specifically for the political marriage. If he managed to capture me, the consequences would be unimaginable. Father Emperor had always sheltered us. He had no idea that over the years, I'd already established a secret intelligence network along the border. With Thorn leading openly and me working in shadows, a two-pronged attack, our chances of victory were far greater. Father Emperor had no sons. As first princess, I should shoulder this burden for him. Thorn looked at me with approval in his eyes. He said I was the person in this world most capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with him. While expedition matters remained unsettled, Tanya began causing trouble again. She cast aside both Lord Marcus and Master Aldrich, insisting loudly that she would accept the political marriage instead. Father Emperor developed a massive headache. When he summoned her, she was already gracefully kneeling. Though I am merely a princess, I also wish to ease Imperial Father's worries, she said softly. But I heard her thoughts. Mother Empress's daughter has value too. Why should Visha steal all the glory? I pondered for a moment, then said to Father Emperor, why not a three-pronged approach? The political marriage is a pretense, a diversion. General Thorn and I will strike together, catching the warlord Khan completely off guard. Tanya looked at me suspiciously. Then Thorn walked out from behind me, and her eyes widened in shock. General Thorn, your legs! Her thoughts screamed frantically. Thorn is so much better than those two idiots Marcus and Aldrich. But damn it, Visha beat me to him again. I'll have to discuss this with Mother Empress. I want Thorn as my consort too. Meeting her venomous gaze, I looked back quietly, waiting to see what scheme she'd attempt. The imperial decree for second Princess Tanya's marriage alliance was announced. Thorn and I spent every day planning marching routes and gathering provisions, barely sleeping or eating. On my wedding day, Tanya bypassed Father Emperor entirely and toasted me first with a cup of wine. Elder sister, though we've never been close, we're both father's daughters. Now that I don't know when I'll return, let this wine be your farewell to me. But in her heart, drink this wine and you'll go to the marriage alliance in my place. I sneered inwardly and poured the wine into my sleeve. I didn't breathe easy until I watched her climb into the bridal sedan. When I turned back, Master Aldrich was watching the sedan depart with a lost expression, his eyes red-rimmed. I had no intention of acknowledging him, but he blocked my path and poured himself wine from the side. We were once teacher and student, he said quietly. I know I've wronged you. Let this wine be my apology. He downed it in one gulp, then poured another for me, saying carefully, don't be angry anymore. Fine. I stared at him coldly but heard his thoughts. I only wish for Visha to be safe and sound her whole life. Thinking of all our good times from the past, I sighed and downed the wine. A wave of dizziness washed over me immediately. When I woke again, I was dressed in bridal robes, bound and tied inside a sedan chair. It was already dark outside. The curtain lifted, revealing Lord Marcus's smug face. Master Aldrich was right, he said. You really can hear our thoughts. I was stunned. Only then did I realize why Aldrich's thoughts had been so uncharacteristically kind. It had been a trap all along. You and Tanya are both treasured princesses, Marcus continued. It's all the same who goes to battle with General Thorn. He paused, his voice hardening. Since you can hear my thoughts, you should know Tanya is in my heart. To make her happy, I'm willing to sacrifice anything. I glared at him furiously. This has nothing to do with your twisted love. Without my command, the secret border guards won't rendezvous with General Thorn. It will lead to disaster. He stared at me as if I were a monster, then burst out laughing. You? A princess who can't even trust a chicken? If they'd listen to you, why wouldn't they listen to Tanya? Rage consumed me. I snapped the ropes and slapped Marcus hard across the face twice. I'd practiced martial arts with General Thorn Sr. since childhood. To avoid attracting attention, I'd never deliberately shown it. Marcus was slapped so hard he saw stars, immediately leaping up in fury. You dare hit me? Believe me, I'll really send you to the warlord Khan. I sneered. Is this how you treat your savior? His expression froze. At the Spring Pavilion banquet, I said coldly, you and young Master Shaw had a falling out over trivial matters. Shaw deliberately led you drunk to Princess Jane's changing room. Princess Jane is beautiful and gentle, and Prince Shaw cherishes her obsessively. He's violent-tempered and absolute in his authority. If I hadn't sensed something wrong, knocked you unconscious and dragged you away, Prince Shaw would have beaten you to death. But when I woke up, Marcus stammered, Tanya was beside me. You were making a huge fuss and even pulled out one of my white jade hairpins, I said. He'd never recalled these details. Marcus fell silent. I heard him think. No wonder when I mentioned that hairpin to Tanya later, she looked completely clueless. Visha, He eagerly tried to explain, but I cut him off. What you can do right now is disguise yourself as me and continue with the marriage alliance to keep the warlord Khan stable. Dressed in light black robes, I vanished into the night. I rode desperately, exhausting 2 horses, and finally managed to intercept the indignant-looking General Thorn and the pitifully crying Tanya halfway. Upon questioning, I learned the warlord Khan's wedding procession was at the mountain's foot. Moments ago had been the perfect time for ambush. Everyone had waited for my command to launch a pincer attack, but there'd been no signal for far too long. When they lifted the veil, they discovered the person had long been replaced by the clueless Tanya. Now the best opportunity was lost. Yet Tanya was still sobbing while clinging to Thorn's arm, glaring at me resentfully. Why must you always compete with me over everything? I'll give Lord Marcus and Master Aldrich back to you. Just leave General Thorn to me. Veins bulged on Thorn's temples. He was clearly enraged. On the battlefield where his parents were buried, she still dared speak of romantic trifles. I swiftly dragged her by the hair outside the tent, forcing her to look at the burning city below. All of this could have been our homeland, I said coldly. But now it's engulfed in flames, the common people displaced and homeless. I used to envy you for Mother Empress's love, but now I'm extremely grateful I didn't learn a single bit of her cunning treachery. If we return victorious, I'll report you thoroughly to Father Emperor. If we can't, I'll drag you to hell with me. Tanya fell silent. She stared blankly at the commoners wailing beneath the warlord Khan's carriage. For the first time she felt genuine regret. The marriage alliance procession, grand and spectacular, headed straight for the warlord Khan's main camp. Meanwhile, our troops had circled to the rear. The moment Marcus gave the signal, my secret guards and Thorn's army moved out simultaneously, catching the Khan completely off guard. The battlefield was brutal. Even with the initiative seized, we couldn't avoid casualties. That evening, while cleaning my wounds, Tanya came to me. She looked at the gash on my shoulder, and genuine pain flashed in her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I thought you were following General Thorn just to boost morale, and I got jealous. But I never actually wanted you killed. Her eyes filled with confusion. Since we were little, you've been better than me at everything. My skills in music, literature, calligraphy, painting, all inferior to yours. Mother Empress was nice to me in public, but would actually whip me when we were alone. She didn't understand why the refined lady she'd meticulously cultivated still couldn't compare to a wild thing like you raised by wet nurses. She paused, her hand coating cool ointment gently around my wound. So she had me target the people around you. First the childhood friend Marcus. Then Master Aldrich who taught you. She never asked what I liked or wanted. I could only follow your lead. Everything you enjoyed I had to find a way to take. Tanya's hand trembled. All this time I've been blinded by the hatred Mother Empress imposed on me. Only now do I realize, you were always meant to shine brighter than me. General Thorn was right. You truly are the most decisive and resilient woman in this world. A warm teardrop fell into my palm. I knew everything she was saying came from her heart. On the day we returned to the capital victorious, carrying the warlord Khan's head, Lord Marcus's gaze toward me was full of awed admiration. He'd finally been brave once, fighting valiantly on the battlefield. But he'd also lost a leg, becoming the very cripple he'd once mocked with such contempt. Father Emperor personally welcomed us at the city wall. Beside him stood Mother Empress, her expression deeply displeased. Seeing Thorn and me riding the same horse, she shook her head almost imperceptibly, staring meaningfully at Tanya behind me. Tanya lowered her head, trembling. At the welcome banquet, Father Emperor drank too much and rambled on while holding Thorn's hand, speaking of old memories and future hopes. A piece of meat appeared on my plate. I turned to look, it was Master Aldrich. Is Princess Visha well? He didn't quite dare meet my eyes. I gave him a proper smile. Isn't this princess sitting right here before you? Perfectly fine. I paused deliberately. You should learn to cherish the person before you, and not let your heart be split in two. There was also a piece of meat on Tanya's plate. Unlike Marcus, Aldrich wasn't so blatantly biased. He always prided himself on being fair and balanced. Father Emperor summoned me forward, his eyes brimming with paternal love. Visha, you please me most. That ode to eternal splendor you composed last time was so exquisite. Now that you've returned in great victory, how about composing another poem to celebrate? The moment he finished speaking, A wine cup clattered to the floor. Aldrich stumbled to his feet, his eyes fixed directly on me, wide with sudden realization and horror. Thorn immediately stepped in front of me, his brows knitted. "Your Majesty has not yet set a date for my marriage to the princess." Father Emperor laughed heartily. "You little rascal, you've been pestering to marry Visha since you were a child. Today I'll grant your wish." He noticed Tanya to the side and called her forward as well, saying kindly, "Tanya's marriage should also be settled." He gestured to Marcus, who stood awkwardly on crutches in the corner. "Lord Marcus is valiant and martial. Master Aldrich is gentle and learned. Both are excellent matches your mother Empress selected for you." Marcus wasn't at the main banquet table due to his injury, but Aldrich, as if struck by lightning, staggered and knelt in the hall. "This subject is unwilling." His voice cracked across the celebration. Father Emperor's expression froze. Mother Empress crushed the lotus seed in her hand, her knuckles white. Aldrich looked at me, his voice trembling with desperate intensity. "This subject has admired Princess Visha for a long time. In this life I will marry no one but her." I secretly tightened my grip on Thorn's hand, my head aching over how to handle this situation gracefully. And sure enough, I heard Thorn roaring with fury in his mind. "Back when we were choosing a husband for Visha, you said nothing. Mother Empress told us you preferred Tanya. Now we bestow this marriage, and suddenly you claim you love Visha. Do you know the consequences of deceiving the sovereign?" After spending so much time with him, I'd learned he wasn't made of stone. He was an entire barrel of vinegar, easily tipped. Even I had to lower my head before Father Emperor's thunderous rage. "Do you know what you're saying, Aldrich? This is treason." Yet Aldrich was still struggling in his last desperate attempt. This subject did not see my own heart clearly back then. Princess Visha was taught by me personally. I cannot bear to part with her. I realize now that every moment teaching her, every conversation we shared, every smile she gave me, I was falling in love without understanding it myself. Thorn couldn't take it anymore. He started rolling up his sleeves, ready to physically fight. In the midst of the chaos, Tanya, dressed in plain, simple robes, calmly walked forward and knelt before Father Emperor and Mother Empress. "Your child does not wish to marry," she said softly but clearly. "I only wish to devote myself to temple life, to pray for the fallen soldiers and live out the rest of my days in quiet contemplation." She'd unsettled the troops' morale and nearly ruined everything. Executing her publicly wouldn't be excessive, but she'd been raised poorly, and that wasn't entirely her fault. Losing all control, Mother Empress shot to her feet and immediately moved to slap me across the face. "Will you not stop until you've hounded your sister to death?" I caught her hand mid-swing and looked at her coldly, the last shred of my yearning for maternal love vanishing completely. "I would like to ask you, Mother Empress, is it only when I'm dead that you'll finally let Tanya go? Let me go." At these words, even Father Emperor became flustered, hurriedly demanding to know what I meant. Tanya, tears streaming down her face, revealed Mother Empress's schemes before the entire court. From stealing credit for saving Marcus to claiming authorship of the Ode to Eternal Splendor I'd written exclusively for Father Emperor. From manipulating my consort selection to switching me into the bridal sedan to be sent for political marriage. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Only then did they learn that the person in this world most envious and jealous of me was my own mother. Father Emperor was genuinely furious. Mother Empress had been by his side for decades. He'd long known she disliked me but could only try to prevent overt discord. But he'd had no idea she'd secretly harbored such malicious schemes. An open spear is easy to dodge, but a hidden arrow is hard to defend against. He finally issued an edict confining Mother Empress to Chongxi Palace, essentially creating her own personal cold palace. As for Master Aldrich, who'd lost composure before the throne and confessed feelings that contradicted his earlier stance, he was stripped of his title as Grand Tutor and exiled to the bitter northern borderlands. On the day of my grand wedding to General Thorn, Father Emperor issued an additional edict, bestowing upon me the title of Crown Princess. "I owe you too much," he said quietly, his eyes glistening. But I understood perfectly. The man before me, Thorn, was the person in this world who treated me with the most genuine sincerity. Before getting into the bridal sedan, I was stopped one last time by the limping Marcus. His eyes were bloodshot and he only said, "If I had agreed to the marriage from the very beginning, would we not have ended up like this?" I gave him a faint smile. "Let's part ways in this life. I hope we never meet again." I could still hear his thoughts clearly. He truly regretted everything. An overwhelming love for me continuously surged from his heart, desperate, aching too late. "It's just a pity," I thought as I climbed into the sedan chair, "that I didn't have nor did I need another 5-colored racier mushroom. Not for healing broken legs this time, but for healing broken hearts that had betrayed me. Some things once shattered can never be made whole again." The silk curtains of the bridal sedan closed, and I heard Thorn's voice outside, steady and warm. "Are you ready, princess?" I smiled beneath my red veil. "I've been ready since the moment I heard your thoughts in the Jade Throne Hall." "What was I thinking?" he asked, amused. "That you'd do anything to be worthy of me," I said softly. "But you already were, General Thorn. You always were." His hand found mine through the curtain, strong, callous from years of wielding blades, scarred from battles I'd never witnessed. "Then let me spend the rest of my life proving it," he said. The sedan lifted and we began our journey together, not as princess and consort, not as allies bound by duty, but as two people who'd found each other in a world that had tried to keep us apart. Behind us, the palace gates closed. Ahead, a new chapter awaited. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what thoughts I might hear, or what truths might be revealed. Because I'd finally found someone whose inner voice matched his spoken words, whose love for me was the same in both heart and deed. In a world full of beautiful lies, Thorn's honest devotion was the most precious treasure of all, and I would spend the rest of my days cherishing it. Epilogue. 3 years later, I stood on the palace walls beside Thorn, watching our twin daughters play in the gardens below. They'd inherited my ability. I could see it in the way the younger one tilted her head, listening to thoughts no one else could hear. "Will you tell them?" Thorn asked quietly. "About your gift?" I considered this. "When they're ready. When they're old enough to understand that hearing someone's thoughts is both a blessing and a burden." He wrapped an arm around my waist. "You turned your burden into our greatest advantage." "No," I corrected gently. "I turned my burden into clarity. The advantage came from choosing wisely, once I understood the truth." Below, Tanya emerged from the temple where she now lived peacefully, teaching the palace children. She'd found her own path, one of genuine service rather than manipulation. Mother Empress had been released from confinement after 2 years, humbled and quieter, though she and I maintained a cordial distance. Marcus had written from the borderlands. His letters were different now, honest, reflective, no longer performing for an audience. He'd found purpose in training young soldiers, teaching them that true honor meant keeping your word, even when it was difficult. Master Aldrich's letters had stopped coming after the first year. I'd heard he'd married a merchant's daughter in his exile city, a practical woman who managed their small school. Perhaps he'd finally learned to love what was real rather than what was perfect. "Any regrets?" Thorn asked, reading my contemplative silence. I turned to face him fully, this man whose thoughts I could still hear clearly. "She's more beautiful now than on our wedding day." "How did I get so fortunate?" "Not a single one," I said, and I meant it with my whole heart. Because in the end, the greatest gift wasn't hearing everyone's thoughts. It was finding the one person whose thoughts I never needed to doubt. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories every day. Thanks for watching.